Right now, as the world hums along with its usual rhythms, most people are unconsciously navigating one of the most energetically charged and subtly influential days of the entire year. They're sleepwalking through a profound cosmic alignment, completely oblivious to the hidden currents and whispers that permeate the atmosphere. Yet, for those attuned to what's truly unfolding, a monumental advantage emerges, a rare opportunity to harness these energies for their highest good. The fabled 44 portal isn't just open, it's wide gaping, a potent conduit of potential, offering a day of exceptional grace where forces can undeniably move in your favor. This is, by all accounts, a profoundly auspicious day. However, this benevolence comes with a crucial caveat. Its gifts are conditional. They are accessible only if you maintain vigilance and avoid succumbing to certain subtle traps. Because while the everyday world around you presents a facade of normalcy, something profoundly different stirs beneath the surface, and it's precisely here that the path can become deceptively hazardous. Today's unique energetic signature amplifies meaning. This is the critical piece of information that remains untold to the majority. Small, otherwise insignificant occurrences will swell in importance, feeling disproportionately large. Random, coincidental moments will suddenly seem imbued with deliberate intent. Your mind, seeking patterns and order, will begin to notice synchronistic numbers, recurring symbols, and uncanny coincidences, creating the intense sensation that the universe itself is attempting to deliver a direct message. And this, paradoxically, is precisely where many people lose their way. When everything appears to carry profound meaning, the very concept of meaning itself becomes diluted, rendering nothing truly significant. You'll find yourself involuntarily forcing connections, weaving narratives where none inherently exist, and convincing yourself that something holds weight simply because it manifested at an opportune moment. You'll chase a feeling that, in the heat of the moment, resonates deeply and feels undeniably right. Yet it lacks any true grounding in reality. The insidious problem with these choices is that they initially feel anything but wrong. Quite the opposite. They bring a rush of excitement, a powerful sense of being aligned, a conviction that you are finally getting it. But, almost imperceptibly, they begin to tug you off your authentic trajectory, diverting you without your conscious awareness. This, then, is the primary snare of today, not confusion, but a potent, seductive form of false clarity. And if you fail to recognize and address it early, you risk squandering an entire day, meticulously moving in the wrong direction, all while under the firm yet mistaken impression that you are precisely where you are meant to be. The individuals who genuinely reap benefits from a day like this are not those who frantically attempt to extract something from it. They don't engage in a desperate chase for signs or forcefully try to conjure a breakthrough. And it is precisely this non-pressured approach that allows things to organically fall into place for them. This day's unique energy doesn't respond well to aggressive pushing or demanding action. It responds to precision, a subtle, nuanced accuracy of perception and response. Those who navigate this period with gentle care, observing what's unfolding without any desire to control or manipulate it, often find themselves making the most advantageous moves, frequently without even consciously realizing it at first. Their success isn't a result of doing more, but rather of their unwavering commitment to not disturbing the natural alignment that is already in motion. Some moments don't require your effort, they demand your exactitude. This distinction is paramount. While the majority treat days like this as a blatant call to action, to push limits, to make a grand statement, the wise understand that this is a moment of profound support, not a chaotic crucible. It's not here to be wrestled with, it's here to be interpreted with clarity and truth. And once you embrace this perspective, the external world quiets, while your internal perception becomes startlingly clear. You begin to effortlessly discern what resonates authentically, and what feels discordant, eliminating the need for incessant overthinking. You release the urge to force outcomes and, instead, intuitively recognize the currents already moving in your favor, allowing life to unfold with an almost effortless grace. However, this effortless alignment is only sustainable if you adhere to the one critical rule that most people habitually overlook. What endows today with its immense power is also precisely what makes it perilously easy to fail. This isn't a test of your strength or your ability to exert control. It is, fundamentally, a test of your restraint. And the majority remain utterly oblivious to the fact that they are even being tested. They perceive the day's amplified intensity, a buzzing in the air, a quickening of internal pace, and their immediate, instinctual reaction is to dock something, to fix a perceived problem, to chase a burgeoning desire, or to prove their readiness or alignment. But this very reaction is the precise mechanism that throws them off course. The urgent need to act is not always synonymous with clarity. Frequently, it's merely discomfort, expertly disguised as insight. That is the insidious trap. Today ruthlessly exposes your default response when something feels profoundly important. Do you deliberately slow down and observe, allowing insights to unfold organically? Or do you impulsively rush into action merely to regain a fleeting sense of control? Those who falter in this moment are not necessarily unaware. They are simply too quick to render judgment, too quick to initiate movement, too quick to confidently assume they fully grasp the underlying dynamics. In stark contrast, those who genuinely benefit from today's energies employ a different strategy. They watch. They meticulously question their initial feelings and impulses instead of immediately trusting them as gospel. And, perhaps most crucially, they possess the profound willingness to wait when something lacks absolute clarity. They understand a truth that eludes most. Not every significant moment is destined for immediate action. And today, more than any other, serves as a litmus test for how deeply you comprehend that fundamental principle. There's another subtle dynamic at play on days like this, one that most people engage in unconsciously. You might find yourself repeatedly adjusting your posture, smoothing your clothes, touching your hair, or constantly checking your appearance, how you look, how you sound, how you are being perceived. These actions feel minor, almost inconsequential, but they are not. This incessant need to adjust isn't born of necessity, it stems from a deep-seated self-consciousness. It's that nagging feeling that something is slightly off, triggering an instinct to externally correct what you perceive as a flaw, rather than tuning in to understand its true internal origin. The more you labor to fix how you appear, the more you inadvertently disconnect from how you actually are. That is what today quietly yet powerfully exposes. You don't need to perpetually correct yourself every few minutes. You don't need to meticulously refine every single detail of your presentation. Because the more you engage in this behavior, the more you unwittingly shift into a state of performance rather than genuine presence. And once you are performing, your ability to accurately read the moment is compromised. Instead, you're preoccupied with controlling how you fit into it. The people who remain truly grounded today are not those who are constantly scrutinizing themselves. They are the ones who deliberately settle into themselves, allowing for an authentic state of being. No incessant adjustments, no frantic overcorrections, just a steady, centered presence that doesn't demand constant validation or fixing. And it is this very stillness that empowers them to navigate the day without distorting its inherent flow. Because the moment you cease attempting to fix yourself, you paradoxically begin to perceive things as they truly are. But this newfound clarity often ushers in another realization for which most people are wholly unprepared. Not everything that feels right today genuinely is right. There's a particular aspect of today's energy that can effortlessly mislead you if your attention falters. And this deception doesn't arise from difficulty or struggle. It emerges from an almost intoxicating ease. Certain situations will unfold with an unusual smoothness. Decisions will present themselves as startlingly obvious. Circumstances will align in a way that feels almost unnervingly perfect. Your first instinctive impulse will be to wholeheartedly trust it, to think, "This feels so right, therefore it absolutely must be right." But this assumption is not always accurate. Ease, it must be understood, is not always synonymous with true alignment. Sometimes it is merely the absence of resistance, and in the absence of friction or challenge, a dangerous phenomenon occurs. You stop questioning. You accelerate your pace. You assume more than is warranted. You bypass that crucial phase where you typically pause, deliberate, and meticulously think things through. That is precisely where people tend to falter today. Not because they made an inherently bad decision, but because they failed to examine it with sufficient diligence. There exists a fundamental difference between something being genuinely clear and something simply being easy. And today's energy artfully blurs that vital distinction. The individuals who maintain their sharp perceptiveness are those who refuse to be swept away by the alluring smoothness of an unfolding situation. They still meticulously check it. They still rigorously observe it. They still pose the critical question to themselves: does this truly make logical sense beyond its superficial appeal? Because genuine clarity holds steadfast under the scrutiny of sustained attention. False certainty, however, crumbles. And if you fail to slow down sufficiently to notice this subtle yet profound difference, you risk walking directly into a situation that feels absolutely perfect in the moment, yet subtly, irrevocably pulls you away from your true intended path, which is precisely why the next insight carries paramount importance. One of the most significant errors people commit on a day charged like this is attempting to project an image of composure when they are, in fact, anything but. They strive to maintain an outward calm, to appear perfectly balanced, to keep everything meticulously together on the surface, even when internally they are grappling with tension, irritation, or a vague sense of unease. Under normal circumstances, such a performance might go unnoticed, but not today. The intricate energetic structure of this day does not respond to mere outward performance. It responds profoundly to absolute honesty. There is something unique about this 44 alignment that functions almost like an unfiltered truth serum. It remains utterly indifferent to how controlled you appear, how placid your voice sounds, or how flawlessly you present yourself. Instead, it precisely registers the raw, authentic reality that lies beneath all your carefully constructed facades. Composure might successfully deceive other people, but it holds no sway over the unyielding forces of reality itself. That is why forcing yourself into an emotional or mental state you are not genuinely experiencing can spectacularly backfire in ways that initially appear entirely unconnected. You might suddenly notice an inexplicable tension coiling within your body with no discernible external cause. A random, acute spike of anxiety might surge through you, completely unmoored from your immediate surroundings. A seemingly benign conversation could abruptly turn sharp or confrontational, even though it began in perfect harmony. And it will all feel utterly confusing because, on the surface, you have meticulously managed to maintain a facade of being fine. But the suppressed pressure you are diligently holding captive within does not simply vanish because you choose to ignore it. It inevitably finds another, often more disruptive, avenue for release. That is what today exposes, not your emotions themselves, but the unflinching honesty with which you are truly dealing with them. People who endeavor to hold everything in, to meticulously maintain a specific image, or to cling to an illusory sense of control, often inadvertently create far greater internal instability without even realizing it. They are meticulously managing appearances instead of courageously acknowledging what is authentically present within. And the wiser, safer approach is not to impulsively act on every fleeting emotion or externalize every internal rumble. It is simply to be profoundly real with yourself. To recognize what is actually transpiring internally without the immediate compulsion to fix it, without the urgent need to explain it away, and without the exhausting pretense that it is something entirely different. True clarity doesn't originate from control, it blossoms from radical honesty. The individuals who navigate this day with genuine grace are not those who feel perfectly serene. They are the ones who are completely honest with themselves about their authentic internal state. Because once you cease the exhausting performance, the internal pressure has nowhere left to accumulate. And that alone is sufficient to anchor you in a way that most people don't even realize they are desperately missing. Yet, even if you master that crucial aspect, there remains one specific external environment that can completely destabilize your experience of today if you are not meticulously careful. There exists a particular kind of setting capable of thoroughly distorting your perception and energetic experience. And most people won't give it a second thought: loud environments. This doesn't merely refer to overt auditory noise, though that is certainly a component. It encompasses anything that overwhelms and fragments your attention. Think crowded public spaces where your focus is relentlessly pulled in myriad directions simultaneously. Imagine environments where an excessive amount is happening all at once. Too many competing conversations, too much frenetic movement, too much sensory input bombarding you from every angle. Because today demands a heightened level of internal clarity to navigate its subtle currents effectively. And that essential clarity is rapidly disrupted the moment you become overstimulated. When your surroundings are cacophonous and chaotic, your awareness begins to scatter, like seeds thrown to the wind. You cease noticing the delicate details. You miss the subtle, crucial signals. You stop observing with deliberate intention and instead default to reactive impulses. And that, inevitably, is when missteps occur. Not necessarily large, glaring errors, but small, cumulative misreads that quietly add up to significant divergences. Noise doesn't just drown out sound, it drowns out your fundamental awareness. That is the true, insidious problem. You might feel subtly off, without being able to articulate why. More reactive than usual, less certain, even in situations that would ordinarily feel perfectly clear. And it won't consciously register that your environment is the culprit. It will simply feel like something isn't sitting right within you. However, the instant you step out of such an overstimulating space, everything sharpens again. Your thoughts settle into a calmer rhythm. Your reactive impulses slow down. You begin to perceive things for what they genuinely are, rather than through the distorted lens of how they felt in the moment. This profound contrast is vital because it vividly illustrates how effortlessly your perception can be influenced without your conscious detection. The individuals who navigate today effectively are not isolating themselves completely, but they are exceptionally selective about where they direct their precious attention. They actively avoid lingering in environments that perpetually pull them away from their center. Because once your attention is fragmented and scattered, your decisions inevitably follow suit, losing their coherent internal guidance. There's a very specific, compelling urge that frequently surfaces on a day like this, and it feels so eminently reasonable that most people rarely, if ever, question it. You might discover an intensified desire to explain your decisions, not just briefly, but in painstaking detail. You'll feel a subtle compulsion to articulate why you chose a particular path, why you're moving in a certain direction, why you feel the way you do. There's an underlying pull to ensure that other people thoroughly understand you. To validate your internal direction, by making it logically coherent outside the confines of your own mind. On the surface, this might appear to be an act of profound clarity, but it is not always so. Much of the time, it represents the insidious beginning of doubt. When something is truly, unequivocally clear to you, it doesn't generate an urgent need for external explanation. It doesn't demand immediate justification or real-time validation. It simply stands firm on its own, even if no one else fully perceives it yet. The moment you begin to over-explain something that you already know is unequivocally right, you subtly start to weaken your own intrinsic connection to that truth. This is precisely where the dynamic transforms into a subtle trap. You take something that was simple, solid, and self-evident internally, and you begin to overlay it with unnecessary layers of complexity. You adjust your phrasing and emphasis depending on your audience. You attempt to mold it to be more palatable, more logical, more readily understandable to external perspectives. And slowly, without even realizing it, you begin to drift away from your original, pristine clarity. Not because your initial insight was flawed, but because you started negotiating its authenticity. You begin to observe how others respond. You actively seek their agreement, or at the very least, their acceptance. You pay more acute attention to their reactions than to your own unshakable certainty. And once this shift occurs, your guiding direction is no longer emanating from a stable, internal place. It becomes unduly influenced by how it is externally received. That is what today incisively reveals. It shows you precisely where you still harbor the subconscious need to be understood by others before you can fully trust yourself. And the inherent danger isn't that you will necessarily choose the wrong path. It's that you will dilute something inherently, right by attempting to force it into conformity with other people's expectations. Clarity doesn't gain strength through elaborate explanation. It gains strength through courageous, authentic living. The individuals who remain steadfastly grounded in this truth do not feel the constant compulsion to articulate every action they undertake. They do not rush to justify themselves or frantically strive to prove the validity of their moves. They feel no pressure to convert every profound internal realization into something that must be shared or externally approved. They intuitively understand that not everything needs to be spoken aloud to possess undeniable validity. There exists a crucial distinction between communicating when it is truly necessary and compulsively explaining yourself out of insecurity. And today, if you are paying close attention, makes that difference strikingly visible. Because the more diligently you try to convince others, the more subtly you begin to undermine your own conviction, starting to convince yourself that your initial truth needs external validation. And that is where things truly begin to shift in the wrong direction. The people who navigate this day with unwavering integrity keep their internal center perfectly intact. They are willing to embrace a moment of misunderstanding from others, if that is what it takes to remain impeccably aligned with what they intuitively know to be right. They do not rush to fill natural silences with frantic explanations. They do not overextend themselves in a desperate attempt to make everything externally comprehensible. They trust their internal direction sufficiently to allow it to exist, unreinforced by constant external affirmation. Not everything that is crystal clear to you needs to be equally clear to everyone else. And once you cease the exhaustive process of explaining everything, something remarkable occurs. Your decisions feel inherently stronger. Your presence exudes a more stable, grounded energy. You move through the world with a profound, quiet certainty that is no longer dependent on how it is received by others. Because what truly matters today isn't how eloquently you can explain your chosen path. It's how firmly and unshakably you can stand within it, without needing anyone else to confirm that it makes sense. The most profound mistake people make after a day like this isn't anything they did during it. It's how rapidly they disconnect from its insights once the specific energetic influence passes. As soon as things settle back into a semblance of normalcy, the majority inadvertently slip back into a passive state of waiting. They scan their surroundings, searching for external proof that something has visibly shifted, that something tangible has changed, that there's any clear, measurable sign that the day actually held any true significance. And when nothing overtly dramatic manifests immediately, they slowly but surely begin to doubt the potent feelings they experienced, the subtle observations they made, and the profound clarity that emerged for them. That, tragically, is where the entire, invaluable worth of this unique moment is irrevocably lost. Because a day like this is not designed to miraculously rearrange your life for you. It doesn't swoop in and magically fix all your problems. It doesn't forcefully push desired outcomes into place. And it certainly doesn't hand you neatly packaged, visible results on a convenient timeline that you can easily quantify. What it does is far more precise, far more subtle, and ultimately far more powerful than that. It shifts your internal permission. It meticulously illuminates what you have been consciously or subconsciously avoiding, what you have been passively tolerating, what you already intrinsically know, but have not yet gathered the courage to act upon. It sharpens your innate awareness just enough for you to perceive existing realities without the distortion of your usual filters. But it unequivocally leaves the subsequent action entirely up to you. The portal itself doesn't propel your life forward, rather, it precisely shows you where you are now allowed to move. And if you fail to grasp that internal permission and actively utilize it, its profound energetic imprint gradually fades. Not because it wasn't real or potent, but because you neglected to carry its truth forward through your subsequent choices. The real, transformative difference begins after today. It manifests in the quiet, unassuming moments where nothing feels overtly special anymore. It shows up in the conscious decisions you make when there's no immediate external pressure, no lingering intensity, no heightened sense that something profoundly important is happening. That is precisely where most people revert to old, familiar patterns, because it is far easier to return to what is comfortable than to actively maintain a hard-won internal shift that no longer feels externally reinforced. And if you're still here, still reading, still reflecting, I genuinely appreciate your sustained attention. Days like this don't always unfold with dramatic flair while they are happening. They are often quiet, almost imperceptible, easily overlooked, but they unfailingly leave something indelible behind if you are paying close attention. Even if it was just one fleeting moment of insight, one powerful realization, or one seemingly small shift in how you perceive things, that, unequivocally, is enough. You don't need to rush out of this moment and undertake something grand or monumental. You don't need to prove anything to anyone, least of all yourself. Simply hold on to what felt undeniably clear today, allowing that clarity to subtly, yet powerfully, guide your next moves. Because the true, lasting difference isn't forged in one singular, potent day like this. It is forged in the unwavering commitment to what you choose to carry forward after it. So take that with you. You are not behind schedule, you are not late, and you are most certainly not missing anything vital. You are precisely where you need to be to authentically move forward from here.